Editing in Silver Efex 8 isn't just about sliding controls left and right, it's about understanding the best order to do the adjustments. In today's video, I'll walk you through a smarter, structured approach to editing in Nik Silver Efex 8. I'm starting with the colour image open in Photoshop, but you can use Silver Efex as a plugin to other editors like Lightroom and Affinity Photo, as well as a standalone editor. To launch Silver Efex from Photoshop, I'll just open the Silver Efex panel, which I've docked in my sidebar. This has replaced the Nik palette found in earlier versions of the Nik collection which was installed to Photoshop. When Silver Efex opens, you'll see a default black and white conversion of the image. This is based on the 000 neutral preset, which provides a clean, unaltered starting point for the editing. If you've been using an earlier version of Nik Silver Efex, you might notice something new here. Instead of all the controls appearing over on the right side of the interface, Silver Efex 8 splits them across both the left and right panels. On the right side, we now see film types, the histogram and the loop. These are the default controls and can't be removed. That's a significant change from the previous version where everything was appearing on the right. Now, if you look over at the left-hand side, you'll find the new Filters panel. This is where all the filters like the colour effects, basic adjustments and selective tones all now live. It's the same modular approach as used in Nik Color Efex. More importantly, the order of the panels you see here now reflects the recommended editing approach. I'll show you an example of exactly why later in this video. Now, the best place to start is with the film type drop-downs because that's the first control we have installed. This is the foundation of your black and white image, so it makes sense to select it early. If I click the drop-down, you can see there's a list of possible film simulations to use. Now watch what happens as I move my mouse pointer over the list. Notice how we see a preview of the film type on the image. For this edit, I quite like the Adox Silver Max 21 film. It's a little bit bright, but we can adjust that later. When you select a film simulation from the list, it then loads its own curve, grain and tonal response. These can all have significant effects on the image. Next, let's add a colour filter just like we would do with black and white analog film. This emulates the filters that we screw onto the front of our lens to control contrast and produce tonal separation between colours. To do this in Silver Efex 8, we go to the filter panel on the left. We can then hover the mouse over the colour filter and we see a plus icon appear. I just need to click that now and the control appears on the right. Now we can choose from common filter colours such as red, orange and yellow. We can also use the hue and strength sliders though to give us more control. For example, clicking the yellow filter would lighten the yellow tones in the image, just like a yellow filter would when used with black and white film. But we can then refine this using the hue slider to alter the colour, and we can adjust the strength to create a stronger effect. Now let's move on to the basic adjustment panel, which is next in our list. Again, we add this from the left-hand panel by hovering and clicking the plus icon. But notice something else here. There's a small arrow. If I click that, we now see a list of thumbnails appear. These show you the effect of a series of presets that can be applied using the basic adjustment panel. All we need to do is click one of the thumbnails to apply it. Now I'll just use the neutral version preset, which is the first preset in the list, because I prefer to work from scratch when editing black and white photos. We now see the basic adjustment panel added over on the right of the interface. My recommendation here is to focus on two sliders before using any of the others. These are dynamic brightness and soft contrast. Together, they'll produce a powerful tonal adjustment that can be applied to the entire image. If you want to know more about these two controls and why they're so useful, I'll share a separate video at the end of this one that dives into more detail. After applying the global edits in the basic adjustment panel, let's fine-tune parts of the image using local adjustments. Nik Silver Efex has 5 selection tools we can use for this, but let's keep things simple and concentrate on the control line and control points. In this example, we want to darken the sky and add some detail to the clouds. At the moment, the area's just really become a white mass. Let's start by adding a control line to select the sky. If I turn on the mask preview, you can see exactly what's being selected by the control line. Once we have the sky selected, we just use the controls under the control point. Let's use the Amplify Black slider first to bring back some texture and drama into the sky. It's a subtle change, but it does improve the image's overall appearance. We'll come back to using control points later. First, I need to explain something important. Notice how every adjustment that I've added builds on the one before. If I now go back and change the film type, say to Ilford Pan F +50, the entire image is affected. Just by changing the film type, I have to now go back and really readjust all my settings. That's why DxO has arranged the panels in this specific order. Follow the sequence of panels from top to bottom and your workflow becomes much more efficient. But there is an exception that I'll come back to shortly. Let's now say that it's time to finish the image and add a vignette effect. As before, we come over to the Filters section on the left of the interface. We can then expand the vignette section to see the thumbnails. Let's use the Lens Fall Off to vignette for this edit. Now we can see the filter with all the settings applied over on the right. And of course we can alter the size of the vignette and reposition the center onto the image. This adds a nice focusing effect without overdoing the adjustments. Now let's go back to that exception to the workflow rule that I mentioned earlier, and we'll add a selective tones filter. But rather than using these global controls in the filter, we're going to use the control points to do some dodging and burning. Below the controls, click on the control point icon. We can then click the image to add the new control point to the sky. If I turn on the mask view, we can see what's being selected by it. This makes it easy to refine the selection by moving the sample point. When I click the eyedropper icon, we see the sample point appear. We can then move this away from the center of the control point to sample other tones in the image without needing to move the control point. We can also refine the selection if we need to using the luminance, chrominance and diffusion sliders. Once the selection looks good, hide the mask view. We can then adjust the highlights, midtones, shadows and blacks on the control point selection. Just be sure to use the controls attached to the control point and not the global adjustments above them. Next, I'll duplicate the control point by clicking the duplicate icon. I can then drag the new control point over a different section of the sky. And of course, we can continue to add further control points to select other parts of the image and adjust those. This is one way to dodge and burn an image in Silver Efex Pro. When I'm happy with the edited image, I'll just apply the changes. As I'm using Photoshop for this editing, I'll use the Smart Objects feature by clicking the pop-up menu on the right of the Apply button. That keeps my edits non-destructive and fully re-editable. Having selected the Smart Object option, I can click the Apply button to return to Photoshop. And that's the workflow I now recommend in Nik Silver Efex 8. Start with the film type, then the colour filter, the basic adjustments, local edits, and then finishing effects. Although you may need to iterate through the adjustments a couple of times just to find the right balance between them. Now earlier I mentioned another video that explains the two most powerful controls in Silver Efex. It's an older video, but the principles I explain in it still hold true, and it's a great one to watch next. Thanks for watching today. Don't forget to subscribe here and on my website. I'll be back soon for another video.